This is a video series on the misunderstood dangers of too much iron in the body, and for older people, the risk of diseases and early death as a result. Once again, I'm on holiday in Vietnam at Ninh Binh, still in the bamboo hut by a small lake, basically in the middle of nowhere. In this video, I want to discuss hemochromatosis treatment by bloodletting, the history of bloodletting, and how and why it went out of fashion 200 years ago is also the interesting subject to discuss. Bloodletting as a medical practice has existed for thousands of years. It was practiced by the Egyptians, the Greeks, and the Romans. It's thought to have started because it was recognized that women were more healthy and lived longer than men, and it was thought that it was the monthly menstrual cycle which enabled this. In the Middle Ages in England, it became so popular that many barbers performed it, and for that reason, the symbol for a barber was a red and white striped pole outside their shops. But about 200 years ago, bloodletting suddenly stopped after it was recognized that cleanliness was important when letting blood, and that people who were bloodletting were getting infections, particularly in hospitals where there were more germs around. In fact, the pendulum swung so strongly against bloodletting that today it is only used in two medical conditions, and one of these is hemochromatosis. It is my belief that the pendulum has actually swung too far against bloodletting, and it should be used for iron overload even in the case where it's not due to hemochromatosis. One British medical text recommended bloodletting for acne, asthma, cancer, cholera, coma, convulsions, diabetes, epilepsy, gangrene, gout, herpes, indigestion, insanity, jaundice, leprosy, ophthalmia, plague, pneumonia, scurvy, smallpox, stroke, tetanus, tuberculosis, and some 100 other diseases. That probably was the pendulum swung too far towards bloodletting. But if you think about it, some of those diseases, for example diabetes, would have been cured by bloodletting because it would have reduced the amount of iron in the blood. My last video explains why that would be. And additionally, any other disease of old age would be improved on. And any disease where there is inflammation, it could also help, because iron overload increases inflammation everywhere. So undoubtedly there is something in it, and this must be the reason why it was done for 1,000 years. There had to be a reason why people continue to do it. Of course, some of the other aspects, like which part of the body you are bled from, and the astrology of the planets at the time of bleeding, there's actually little evidence of that being important from modern science. Modern doctors explicitly do not use any bleeding anymore unless it's specific problems such as hemochromatosis. They don't even use it for iron overload when there is no hemochromatosis diagnosed. Of course, it should be used for this, but it isn't, and it's probably because bloodletting is out of vogue. It did occur to me there is something similar here to the Iosys craze in California. This is where young blood from 20-year-old students is given to aging billionaires to rejuvenate them. This concept has been proven to work in mice and really does make old mice younger. It's not known why or how it works, but it occurred to me that this may be similar to making the new blood yourself when you're bled. The question is there a difference between new blood made by an old person and young blood in a 20-year-old? If they are the same, then maybe we're seeing the same effect, and maybe there was something in bloodletting for many of the ailments after all. making new blood yourself may be much better. It's certainly what I'd prefer than using blood from young people with dubious origins and having infections themselves. Now let's examine my story and how my hemochromatosis treatment using venesection has gone on. As I mentioned in earlier videos, it took 5 months from my first blood test before I was officially diagnosed with hemochromatosis, despite my ferritin level being measured over 1000 last July/August. So whilst I was waiting to see a specialist, I started worrying about the fact that my ferritin level was dangerously high. It was over 1000. First of all, I decided I should be fitter and started experimenting with the keto diet, which I explained in video 5. And I did lose weight. In fact, I actually lost 6 kilos. And this is the graph of my weight reducing. During that time, my ferritin actually increased. My conclusion is that losing weight, I was releasing some ferritin from my body fat. So this was probably actually a bad idea to do after all, and may have done some more additional damage. When I did eventually get my official diagnosis, it was because they did a liver scan using an MRI to measure the amount of iron deposited in the liver. This came out at 8 milligrams per gram, where the normal maximum for a normal person is 2 milligrams per gram. At this point, my liver specialists admitted that I did have hemochromatosis. So in this graph you can see my iron level started just over 1000 when I was first trying to get a diagnosis. It actually increased to 1400 during my period of dieting, and then after that it started to go down again. After October, my weight stabilized and I was much more careful about what I ate. I also started taking IP6, both of which does chelation of iron. So even before my venesection had started, my ferritin level had fallen substantially. By the way, I don't recommend chelation as it also reduces copper, zinc and magnesium. And these are actually essential minerals. So by the start of venesection, I was already as low as 786. And this is now, you can see a graph of my iron going up, my ferritin level going up, and then decreasing. And in November, the start of my weekly venesection. Between December and January, there was a break for Christmas, which caused the flat area again. And they continued every 2 weeks and then later every week again. At the time of this video, I'm down to 285. That's actually below the 300 value of a safe ferritin level. But they do intend to continue when I get back off holiday. And they will take me as low as 50. You can see whereas my levels seem to stop and start, here I have a graph of someone else where you see a steady decrease. So that's probably someone that didn't mess around with their weight and supplements. And that's the end of this video. If things have interested you, please like and subscribe. Please leave your comments on what sort of subjects you want me to talk about in future videos, and I'll see you next time. Thank you.